contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
This is an NBC News Radio special report. Hurricane Milton. Milton is barreling towards Florida's Gulf Coast as millions evacuate. The National Hurricane Center says Milton is a catastrophic Category 4 hurricane and will be extremely dangerous when it hits Florida's central coast either tonight or early Thursday, with maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour. Forecasters say the outer bands of the hurricane are already starting to impact Florida and that conditions are expected to deteriorate throughout the day. Central Florida can expect multiple significant hazards from Milton. The National Weather Service expects up to 15 inches of rain near the I-4 corridor and potentially devastating flooding. Tornadoes are already popping up in southwest Florida, with more expected today and tomorrow. Florida residents who've evacuated said they're scared about returning home once Milton passes.
I'm scared. I'm worried that my house ain't going to be there when I get back, because I'm right on the water. Storm surge is going to be pretty bad down there.
This has been an NBC News Radio special report. Hurricane Milton. I'm Lisa Taylor.
And now, the voices of KCAA with an exciting announcement.
Want to hear NBC News or KCAA anywhere you go? Well, now there's an app for that.
KCAA is celebrating 25 years and our silver anniversary with a brand new app.
The new KCAA app is now available on your smart device, cell phone, in your car, or any place.
Just search KCAA on Google Play or in the Apple Store.
One touch and you can listen on your car radio, Bluetooth device, Android Auto, or Apple CarPlay.
Catch the KCAA buzz in your earbuds or on the streets, celebrating 25 years of talk, news, and excellence with our new KCAA app.
Just do it and download it.
KCAA, celebrating 25 years.
One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Re-elect Don Williamson as your county assessor. Some people run for office to serve themselves first. Others, like Don Williamson, run for office to serve you. He has a history of service as a former Marine and tax saver. When you're the assessor, you need real experience and knowledge to be effective. As a former 3-term San Bernardino County assessor, Don has a wealth of information for the people. Now he's back, running again because he wants to help people first, including seniors, veterans, mobile homeowners, and small business owners. Don's the only real experienced, educated, and certified tax professional from San Bernardino County who's actually done the job. He's a public servant. Don Williamson will cut your high taxes again. Go to VoteDonWilliamson.com. That's VoteDonWilliamson.com.
I'm Donald Williamson, Semper Fi. I want to help you save money. I approve this message.
Paid for by the Committee to Re-elect Don Williamson 2024.
Calling all business owners, this is your moment. Join us for the 14th annual Connecting Faith in Business Summit happening on October 17th at the beautiful Doubletree Hotel in Ontario, California. Registration opens at 9 a.m. and the conference kicks off at 10 a.m. sharp. This isn't just another business event, it's a gathering of minds and hearts where faith and entrepreneurship comes together. Bakers, SBA representatives, and marketing experts will be there to equip you with powerful tools to grow your business. Plus, we'll take a special moment to pray for your business because we know that true success is built on faith. Don't miss out. Go to ampac.com today to register or call 909-915-1706. Step into your purpose and unlock the resources you need for your business to thrive. We'll see you there at the 16th Annual Connecting Faith in Business Summit, where your faith and future connect.
Welcome to the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan, a brand new show about labor and worker issues. The host of the show is Randy Corrigan, Secretary-Treasurer and Principal Office and leader of Teamsters 1932, one of the largest public sector labor unions on the West Coast, representing workers in government and non-sworn law enforcement personnel. Randy Corrigan is a 30-year Teamster who first became involved in the labor movement by volunteering his time as an organizer with the Teamsters Union at the age of 21. Since then, he's helped thousands organize, mobilize, and achieve bargaining rights. He accomplished this by spending countless hours with brave men and women all over Southern California, in their living rooms, on the picket line, to bring workers towards victory. This is the Worker Power Hour. And now here's the host of the show, Randy Corrigan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Randy Corrigan, Worker Power Hour. Long-time organizer, first-time radio host. Good to be back. The last week's show went extremely well. Really appreciate all the guests from last week. As a reminder, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. And here we are, back at the Worker Power Hour. Got a lot of guests lined up today. Gonna go through a pretty quick and heavy lineup over the next couple hours. But it's just a quick recap of last week's show. We had Garrett Kramer, hearing the stories of our Teamster Advantage partner, hearing the stories regarding the solar, the new, selling new systems, having to repair old systems. A lot of the funny stories he shared was definitely interesting. And I mean, just think about it for a minute. Think about someone who's having to repair solar and all the do-it-yourselfers that could be, trying to piggyback off of an existing system. I had a lot of fun with that conversation. And they've obviously been a very long partner with us over a long period of time. So we really appreciate that relationship there. We also had Alex Perez on from Montclair. He's one of our stewards. He works in wastewater. Really appreciate him coming on and talking about the challenges that they're having with trying to finish out their contract there in the city of Montclair. He did a great job of not only talking about the job that he does, but he also explained what's going on with that contract battle there in the city, and he also explained how members from other cities and within the community came out to support their push a couple weeks ago and making sure that they got a fair contract with the city of Montclair. I'll just point out it's pretty obvious if you work for a city, especially here in Southern California, and your longest tenured individual working there is only there 8 years, and the city has been around obviously for a very long period of time. You got some challenges there. What's happening is you're training the rest of the workforce, and so we're going to be helping drill down on that over the next few weeks, and hopefully they'll resolve their contract soon. If not, we could very well have a labor dispute and have a strike there in the city of Montclair. Hope not. Hope that we'll be able to find resolution, but hopefully you're listening in, Alex, and all of the Montclair members, and we'll keep you posted on what's going on there. We also had Jennifer Maravilla on. She's a candidate for the Redlands City Council. She did a great job of talking about I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is canvassing, knocking on the doors, building the relationship, and really listening, asking good questions of the community, and trying to understand what the needs are of the constituents in the area. And so great having you on. We're actually going to have a few more from that area on today. We're going to have, like I said, a full schedule. We're going to be stacking them up. Isn't that right, Robert? So our live shout-outs. The next part of the show, we're going to go to live shout-outs. Nadal Rafidi from ARMC is listening in. Joy Reen, dispatcher from San Bernardino Sheriff's. We love our dispatchers. You're very underappreciated, most underappreciated, and one of the most difficult jobs on the face of the planet, in my opinion. We really appreciate you, Joy Reen. We really appreciate the work that you do, and thanks for listening in live. Nicole Garrett at EVS ARMC. Vernon Williams. I see Vernon at the membership meetings all the time. Thanks for listening in live, Vernon. Chino Valley Fire District is listening in live. Our Redland stewards are listening in live. And we have Lizandra Diaz, and we have the City of Coachella mid-managers listening in live. We also have all our VOs that are working on the Amazon campaign and or that are coming out on other campaigns showing worker power. They're knocking on doors, canvassing, following workers, talking to them, helping them build worker power and challenge their boss at work. And so we really appreciate all that support, really appreciate all the live shout-outs. And we understand that our listenership is actually accelerating very fast here recently. We're following the numbers and very excited to report that those numbers are skyrocketing, and we really appreciate all of you listening in. Even if I didn't mention you by name, if you want to be mentioned by name, just feel free to call us or text me or let us know, and we'll do a nice little live shout out for you. Short of that, I'm going to move on to the next part of our show, which is some news. We have a lot of things going on in the news right now, and actually, I'm getting a little far ahead of myself. Teamster jobs, Robert, you gotta throw something at me and slow me down here. This is one of my favorite Teamster jobs, and for those of you that are first listening or just tuning into the show, we every week we do Teamster jobs, and we have a Think a Teamster program that we've rolled out throughout the Inland Empire, and you'll see it on buses where it says Think a Teamster. You'll see it on billboards. You see it in, obviously we talk about it on the radio, and it's just bringing recognition of the cool jobs that Teamsters do. And this is one of those real cool ones, by the way. What was that noise, Mark? Anyway. Budweiser Clydesdale horses must be they're handled by Teamsters. And so anytime you see the Clydesdale horses for Budweiser, just know that, and obviously you see in our logo, horses in a wheel. Those horses, we go all the way back to the days of the stables, and we represented those jobs and still do to this day represent, ironically, some in New York and other parts of the country, where we actually still handle the stables, the stableman jobs. And the Clydesdale horses are handled by Teamsters. And so those horses are taken care of by Teamsters from morning to night. The person who also has to haul them, obviously got to transport when they go to all these parades and all that. Those are Teamsters as well. And so, it's the cool thing, it's built into the Teamster contract, and it's been there for a very, very, very long time. So if you are at a fair or a ball game and you see the Budweiser Clydesdale horses, take time to talk to your brothers and sisters who care for the horses. Walk over, introduce yourself, and thank a Teamster. It's part of our whole Think a Teamster program. We want to make sure that they understand that. There's here's a one that's always fun. Every now and then this one resurfaces, and we talk about how funny it is. That is Pampers. Pampers are made by Teamsters, and I think that's in Seattle, somewhere in Washington State. And so anytime you see some Pampers or you see a kid wearing a diaper, and many of us at some point, obviously, I guess when I wore them, they were cloth, but right? So, but, the disposable diapers that are Pampers are made by Teamsters. And so next time you're in the grocery store or you're somewhere and you see those Pampers, just think of Teamsters actually making sure that they're produced and they're distributed and they're delivered so that kids won't be potty in other places, making messes everywhere. Also, it's just announced here recently, the Las Vegas Strip is 100% unionized at the hotels in some fashion or another. And so many, many years ago, the Las Vegas Strip was 100% unionized. Over the years, that had kind of fallen away and deteriorated to where there was only a few of them, and now it's back to 100%. As a matter of fact, I just heard this morning another group of workers last week just recently organized at another one of the hotels. And so you're talking Cosmopolitan, Aria, Paris, MGM, all the way down the Strip. All of them are union in one form or another. And so many of the bellhops and if you pull up to those hotels, the bellhops and the valets, the ones that take your car and take your luggage, those are Teamsters. And those have been Teamsters for many, many years. And those aren't just Teamsters in Vegas. They're Teamsters in a lot of areas. Matter of fact, I had to go to downtown LA on Monday for something. As soon as I got out of the car, the valet recognized something I had that was a Teamster brand. He's like, "Hey, we're Teamsters here." Had a nice little conversation, gave him a sticker. And, it's amazing how many Teamster jobs are out there and how much we appreciate them. So next time you're in that space in Vegas, most people go to Vegas and they like to party like a rock star. Just remember that there are Teamsters taking care of you and making sure you get to and from. The next part of the show is our Teamster news, is our actual, whether it's Teamster news or local news or labor news. All right, this one's better, Mark. I like this one. Yeah, I'll take this one. If you bring it down just a little bit and keep it rolling. Thank you, Mark. Oh, by the way, it's good to have Marky Poo back. We really appreciate Mark being back, and we missed him for a couple weeks. He was playing hooky. He says he was sick, but he wasn't. I think he was like ditching or something like that. I called his mom, tried to tell on him, and she backed him up. So I guess it was true. Anyway, in Teamsters Local 63, Teamsters Local 1932 news, we have Chino Valley Fire. Teamsters are going to be holding an action for a fair contract tonight. They're going to be showing up en masse at the agency's meeting this evening, and Abraham Gallegos is organizing it. So if anybody is listening in, wants to help out, wants to get there, make sure you reach out, and we'll get you the address of where to show up. If you just want to show up and you know where to show up, great, we'll see you there. Also, this Saturday, Teamsters Local 1932 staff and members are going to attend a day of action for Rudy Salas for Congress, who's running against the very anti-labor candidate on the other side. And so Lorena Gonzalez will actually be in attendance. As a matter of fact, a cool thing is happening this weekend where our bus that's this weekend, right, Robert? The Teamsters Local 1932 bus is actually carrying campaigners and walkers going member to member, knocking on union members' doors throughout the state of California. And that's going to be all in the Teamsters 1932 bus over the next few days. So thank you, Lorena, for allowing us to use the bus. And we appreciate being able to help out in making sure the members get their voice heard and make sure that they participate and they vote. I also want to report on the fact that at the IBT that UNFI workers in Atlanta have overwhelmingly voted to become Teamsters for Teamsters Local 728. Know the guys over there and ladies over there. It's a great local union. Really appreciate all the hard work they do there. 208 new members there in that Atlanta local. Really appreciate the work that those workers are doing and look forward to them getting a really good contract. Also Teamsters and Mayor Breed and California leaders rallied to demand Amazon recognize a union. This was amazing. Last week I had just reported while we were going live that there was an announcement that another Amazon facility was demanding recognition and demanding Amazon recognize their right to a contract. And the following day, the mayor and a bunch of elected officials came out and really, really put the pressure on Amazon, basically saying you need to recognize these workers and stop with the very unsafe, bad working conditions and clearly terrible wages, benefits. And you're talking a multi-billion-dollar corporation when it comes to profits. They can share these profits a little better. Amazon Teamsters at the company's DCK6 warehouse in San Francisco were joined by San Francisco Mayor London Breed and Board Supervisor Shaman Walton at the rally and press conference. And they recognized the demand for Amazon workers on Amazon itself. And those workers are really, really inspiring one another. Those workers are really, you see the workers are doing it in Chicago. They did it in New York. They've done it here in Southern California. Also did it there up in the Bay Area just a few days ago. And you're going to see more to come. So hats off to them. Really appreciate everybody helping them out and making sure we're paying attention to that. The last thing I want to report on just briefly is Vice President Harris is trying to secure a little bit more labor support in the signs of some unions are not coming out with the full endorsement. I don't see any unions actually endorsing Trump. I haven't seen any yet, but not all of them have actually endorsed Harris. And so there's obviously in this, CNN has done a piece on this regarding the struggle to match previous Democratic nominees and levels of support with union voters. And it's coming under a little bit of scrutiny as a result of our union as well as the firefighters. They've withheld their endorsements on the presidential election, basically saying we're not going to take a position simply because of some of the internal challenges in which the members see when it comes to that process. I talked about this heavily on a couple shows ago. If you want to go back and listen to that, please feel free to do that. I want to point out that General President O'Brien has been very, very straightforward about the fact that the Democrats have not been as supportive of labor and supportive of the Teamsters as many would claim that they are. And I know that there's this assumption that there's this automatic red stamp or approval stamp that anybody who's a Democrat gets the Teamsters endorsement. It's never been that way, and it's never going to be that way. And what he's doing is he's reiterating that and basically, pointing out some of the things that the Democrats have failed to do. Clearly the Republicans have come up short too. And I know that everybody freaks out sometimes when you get into this, especially this time of the year and this cycle. Everybody really gets kind of stressed. But we really appreciate the General President putting the Teamsters on the radar and making sure that our message is out front with everybody else. And the last thing I'll point out just real briefly is there's more Black and Latino women that are leading unions and transforming how they work. Women make up roughly half the U.S. labor force when it comes to membership, but the representation in the top level union leadership positions does not represent that. I know we're proud in Teamsters Local 1932 to have the president of our organization. She's a woman. A majority of our board is female. A majority of our staff is female. And believe me, we recognize this issue of diversity. And, you have to always work at diversity. It's not something you can make a decision once and say, oh, well, I made a diverse decision. And so there's a really good article with AP News. You guys should look it up, read it, and really pay attention to that because it's really good to see. It's really good to see organizations paying attention to this subject and making sure that space is occupied in the appropriate manner. And so with that, I'm going to get to one of my favorite parts of the show, which is the Teamster Advantage part of the show. And this time we don't have a Teamster Advantage partner on, but we do have a chamber partner on. We have somebody from the Chamber of Commerce in Colton. We have Christina and we have Javier who are here. And for those of you that don't know, round of applause for them. For those of you that don't know, our Teamster Advantage program is comprised of more than 1,000 small businesses throughout the Inland Empire. We believe that small businesses occupy the very same space as the working class and the middle class. They're really just trying to work hard and raise their family and pay their bills. And, most of them are not independently wealthy. Maybe some are, but most aren't. And most are just doing the best they can. And it's important for us in the community, is to help one another and make sure that we encourage, first and foremost, people to shop locally. Number one. Number two, also do what you can to patronize these businesses and just look for them. Sometimes it's a matter of convenience and you're just going to look for what's on your phone. Go a little bit out of your way. We have an app at the local union. It's called the Teamster Advantage app, and we send out push notifications on a regular basis. I know we just had some glitches with it. Everybody's having to actually delete and reload the app because we ran into a technical issue with the app provider. However, it's good that everybody's been paying attention to it because as soon as the glitches were happening, everybody was complaining about it. So that means it's a tool that works, and we love the fact that this app-based system is great for the small business and just does a great job of advertising for them. And with that, another good place for small businesses to convene is with the local chambers of commerce. And with that, I'd like for Christina and Javier to introduce themselves briefly and talk about what chambers do, because it's a good segue into what small businesses do for the community.
Hi, my name is Christina
Need you come
Gaitán.
Closer.
I'm the coordinator for the Colton Chamber of Commerce, and I brought my board member,
Javier Gomez.
And for the Chamber for the Colton, we support the small businesses and also the large businesses with advertising if they have any events coming up or if they need any support with if just in case they run into any kind of binds with the city, we help with going in and talking, to our economic development department. And then also we support their ribbon cuttings, their grand openings, and just welcoming the new businesses into the city of Colton.
Javier, you got anything you want to add to that?
So, the chamber is great. It's helped my business, and it's helped me promote the services, the community events that we put on for the community. And it's a wonderful tool for small businesses like mine.
Yeah, networking. It's a common space where you get to find out other things that people are doing within the city too.
Correct.
Yeah, and then sponsoring functions. Sometimes I know we're in 26 chambers throughout the Inland Empire. Obviously, we get a sponsorship request almost every single day. We can't sponsor everything we're asked to, but we do a pretty good job of sponsoring a lot of different functions and events. Matter of fact, I think we just sponsored one for Colton here recently, right?
Yes.
Which one was it?
It was for our Colton Christmas parade.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's going to be in December the 14th. And you guys were generous to sponsor the parade also.
Yeah, we really enjoy doing it. I mean, our members like coming to these types of functions too, because we do two things. Not only do we try to sponsor it, but then we obviously advertise it a little bit too and say, hey, letting you know there's this function going on. And that creates an energy for the small businesses, because if they got booths or if they got small businesses that are in the area where the function's going on, they're obviously going to benefit from that traffic.
And then also, we also have a job fair coming up, which you guys will be attending, and you guys also have a table there for outreach.
Yeah, our Teamster training center is going to be there, right? The
Yes.
Teamsters 1932 Training Center?
Yes.
Oh, good. What's the date on that? Do you remember?
It is October the 17th.
October 17th.
At the CET in Colton.
Great. Javier, anything else you want to add to this? So I'm not the only one that's got show notes over here. See. Sometimes I'm a long-time organizer, first-time radio host, so I feel like I'm a rookie.
Well, I was just appointed member of the board of the Chamber of Commerce, so I'm really looking forward to being part of the chamber, and I think I have some great ideas how we can keep promoting the chamber and the small businesses in the community, and any help that we can get from anyone as far as helping us advertise, promote, it's of course going to be always appreciated.
Yeah, that's great. One of the reasons why we're present at the chambers is, big corporations have a lot of money and they have a lot of resources.
Correct.
And ironically, they hurt small business most of the time.
Yes.
But they use the National Chamber of Commerce and the State Chamber of Commerce to sometimes run these narratives that get all the way to the local chambers. And sometimes I get a little frustrated when a chamber is actually promoting something that's counterproductive for the small business. Right. Now, somebody else has built the narrative for them because it's corporate America freaking out over a regulation or some policy or some issue that we're trying to get done, and then they turn around and spin it. So when we're there to say, hey, wait a minute, that's actually not the case. Matter of fact, we may be connected to that policy or the individuals creating that policy, and we try to utilize that space to educate the small business owners a little more, because the best jobs in the area, the people that are spending the most money, are typically union members. And it's important to protect that space, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely.
So here's the thing with us, I'm sure other chambers are also do the same policy. You have to be a member in order for you to have access for us to give you the advertisement. So even if we get 10 different kind of flyers a day from big companies, if you're not a member, we're not going to promote it.
One of the things, what I'm more speaking of is when, I've had a couple chambers what I've tangled a little bit with. It's never been with Colton, but it's been some of the other ones. And, they've taken a position to start railing on, let's say an overtime issue or a 40-hour week issue, or some of these things that they say is actually hurting small business, and that the rules got to change because it's making it cost more to do business. We actually can show statistics that are usually contrary to what that chamber, and usually some of the bigger chambers that got a lot of money,
right.
And they're running a narrative that corporate America is trying to push through to say, oh, even though we're, you got these, let's just use the big W, Walmart as an example. Walmart's notorious for killing small business. Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And any big box retailer is notorious for doing the same thing.
Yes.
These e-commerce giants are notorious for doing the same thing, right? But yet they say, no, we're here for you. We're trying to help you. And so it's just trying to make sure we balance that space. We try to do the best we can to help at least make sure that it's balanced information so that the chambers kind of don't just get a one-sided, view. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I won't name any big companies that I've reached out to, but there's a lot of big companies that will not support a chamber.
Yeah, because they write the check to the National Chamber of Commerce.
Right, I'm sure they do.
Right.
Yeah, I've gotten turned down a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there, again, we really appreciate you coming on, and we really appreciate you talking about the relationship and the partnership between us and your chamber there in Colton. Is there anything else you want to close on before we wrap up this segment?
Well, first I want to thank the Teamsters for always supporting us, and when we have community events. You guys have always been there to support us and to help us, with the cost of running these events, because we have to start at ground zero with no money, and then we have to secure these support, how would you say it? The sponsors, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sponsorships.
The sponsorships.
Yep.
And you guys have always been graciously giving us, help us out. It's not, we don't expect for thousands of dollars, but it's always, in the, where we appreciate what you guys do for us.
No, we appreciate that. What's interesting is our connections for us. I don't know if you guys know who Tony Soto is in Colton, but Tony lives in Colton, and most of these events that we sponsor in all these chambers, not just Colton, but all over, we always kind of have a member or a board member or a staff member or an activist or an advocate. We usually got someone that's kind of connected to it, and they're like, hey, we got this event going on in our town. What are we going to do to help support it? And so we really love being part of those organic pieces. We love being connected to those things within the community because it's our members are in the city of Colton. We represent the city.
Right.
The workers that work at the city are Teamsters.
Yes.
So,
and I know who Tony is.
Almost everybody in Colton knows who Tony is.
Yeah.
So with that, anything else you want to close on? We really appreciate the partnership and appreciate you coming on.
So we are taking applications for the parade starting at the end of this month. You guys can follow us on our platform for Facebook at Colton Chamber of Commerce, or you can follow us also on our website for additional information. But we'll open up the parade in late October, and then it will stop, I want to say, the last week of November, and then the parade starts December 14th at 10 o'clock.
Sounds like a good time. Everybody that always reports back from those events say they're a lot of fun. And what I love about the Colton community is it's a very close-knit city.
Yes.
Everybody knows everybody,
Yes.
and everybody stays connected to Colton.
Yes.
It's one of those cities that generationally families typically stay.
Yeah, my family have been there over 100 years, and we have lived in the house for 50 years.
Did you know the Earps? Everybody always asks that, right? I know you did.
Maybe my grandparents.
Did your grandparents know the Earps?
Probably.
Right. For those who don't know, one of the Earps is buried actually in Colton.
Right.
Yeah. So, Wyatt Earp and Morgan. I think it's Morgan that's buried there, right?
I think Morgan is,
yes. It's Morgan that's buried in Colton. So, again, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. We're going to transition to a quick break here as I wrap this last piece off, just to give Mark a heads up. And Javier, Christina, we really appreciate you coming on. And we appreciate the relationship, and we appreciate the support of small business in the community. It's very valuable to our community for us to all connect with one another. With that, so Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan. See you on the other side of the break. Just take 90 seconds.
Living it up in the city. Got Chuck's on with Saint Laurent. Gotta kiss myself, I'm so pretty. I'm too hot. Call the police and the fireman. I'm too hot. Make a dragon wanna retire, man. I'm too hot. Say my name, you know who I am. I'm too hot. And my band bought that money. Break it down. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch. Come on. said you hallelujah. Girls said you hallelujah. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Cause Uptown Funk don't give it to you. Saturday night and we in the spot. Don't believe me, just watch.
All right, everybody seems like they're digging the music. This is Randy Corrigan with the Worker Power Hour, back, longtime organizer, first-time radio host, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. And I am joined right here to my right on the screen, left, right? Yeah, there she is. She's waving. Kalela, you have come on the scene here recently and had just been super active, a super great advocate. And, at the last membership meeting, we told the story about how determined you were to get to a function a long way away and all the flights you dealt with to make sure you get there. So we appreciate your spirit. We really appreciate your activism, and we appreciate your participation. And you do a really, really important job. And I'm going to shut up here in a minute. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and I'm going to let you talk about this cool job that you do for the community. I think we're not on. There we go.
There we go.
All right.
Yes, thank you so much, Randy. I think the only reason why I do have so much passion is because I'm matching the passion of my leader.
Oh,
so
well.
Thank you so much, Randy.
That must be Kathleen, not me.
Well, I will say the Secretary-Treasurer, and we hear it a lot when we listen to the radio. We hear that passion in his voice, and I think that it's important that we all want to do a good job, so it's important to follow the people who are doing that good work.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You guys inspire me to be full of energy.
Yes, yes. So what do I do?
You're going to talk about your job. What's your job title?
Currently, what I do, I am a employment service specialist for San Bernardino County. Basically, the people who who might be, let's say they're having some issues with income, they may be in poverty, have lost their job. My job is to make sure that I am providing them the support in order to transition off of self-sufficiency. But the reason why I am here today is because I am also the change champion for the Black Infant Health Program to help reduce the infant mortality rate for Black pregnant women. I was one of them who almost faced death during pregnancy. And so I'm very passionate about it. And I want to help the women within my community so they do not suffer the same circumstances as I did or worse.
Isn't that amazing that you've been able to get into a job where you can actually utilize something that was a challenge and then flip it to a passion, right?
Something positive. I think something even positive. That's what we do with unionizing. We deal with something where we might feel a certain way at our job and the way that we have been treated, and then we turn it into a fashion, turning it into good.
So I think you just said it. If you didn't, I'm going to say it again. You were recently named the Change Champion for Black Infant Health, correct?
Yes.
So what does that mean?
So what it means is that I go around to all the different offices within San Bernardino County to talk to the workers, just like I am. There's thousands, about enrolling customers in this program.
And what's the program do?
The program is called the Black Infant Health Program. It is a 10-week program for Black pregnant women. They have to be the ages of 16 years of age or older. They have to be pregnant or up to 6 months postpartum. We help them with parenting classes, advocacy classes, as far as we want them to be able to advocate for themselves. So we have them partnering with nurses, with midwives, to help discuss any issues that they're having within their pregnancy, because sometimes you don't know if things are normal or not. Write down those questions ahead of time. Ask the tests that they're needed so then they can go to the doctor, articulate themselves, because we know knowledge is power. They know what's going on with their bodies, request the tests that are needed. What happens is the doctor takes you more seriously. They understand that they know about their body, which then helps bring down that infant mortality rate. They also help with mental health classes, parenting classes, health and wellness classes. After they complete the program, they have a nice baby shower for all the women who have had bonds after that. They have play dates with their children. They get together, have formed long-term friendships, but they will have a baby shower for all of them so they can buy gifts, they can get free car seats, changing tables, strollers for themselves, so then they can be better parents.
It's a space to connect to resources that a lot of times people don't know are there, right?
Yes.
And obviously the voids that are there for individuals that are in a tough spot, sometimes they just don't know it exists. And so your part of your job is to just make sure that there's more awareness to the advocacy.
Yes, and more people being enrolled in the program as well. Because for those who don't know who are listening, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during childbirth, depending on the state that they're in. And Black children are 3 to 4 times more likely to die before the age of 1 than white children, which is what brings me here today.
Yes, and there's a lot of factors that go into that, clearly. However, this is one of the potential solutions to trying to help deal with that, those obviously terrible statistics.
Yes, some of them are economic, and some of them, to be completely honest, is implicit bias. We all have it in some form or fashion. But unfortunately, when it comes to childbirth, it has detrimental effects that can sometimes lead to death.
Yeah, and making sure that an individual has all the resources necessary in that most vulnerable time is I mean, it's precious, right? It's extremely valuable and extremely important. And for me, being a Teamster doing this, like, this is just, again, one of those amazing jobs that Teamsters get to do that I'm just so proud of.
Yes. I think, over the years, I'm now 43 years old, and I've had a lot of different jobs, and I think that this is the best one I've ever had.
That's great. That's great to hear. So tell me about these baby showers. Do guys go to them?
I assume they can. I assume that they can. It's not like they'd stop,
Man, I try to duck and dodge them. I'm now a grandfather and I'm having kids, and so baby showers are. I'm not having kids. I had, obviously, my wife and I have 9 together, so lots of grandkids are coming, and it's starting to roll right now, and. So the baby showers come up, and I always, do I have to go? Do I really have to go? I don't want to go to that.
It is nice, but honestly, the very purpose.
But you ladies love baby showers.
We do. You know why? Because kids are expensive.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
kids are expensive, and so it's nice to have the diaper raffle where you can get diapers of all sizes, the onesies, the toys, all of it.
Yeah, the onesies seem to. You get lots of them. I've always seen that you get too much of one size, I guess. Sometimes it's not spread out enough.
Yes. Yes. The newborns, it's nice to have some newborn clothes, but a lot of the times you give birth and the kid's not even a newborn even when they're born, as far as size wise. They're already they're already in a 1 or a 2.
So tell me about this baby shower. So it's a baby shower that's kind of put on by the group, this connection of people.
So this program is ran by the Department of Health. Okay, so one of the, a lot of departments have subsects of other programs under it. Black Infant Health is one of them, where they can meet regularly. At the end, it's 10 weeks. They get together. They, discuss what's happening right now in their birth, because it's towards the end of their birth. Before they're going to give birth, and they just give gifts to everybody. They're wrapped. It gives the parents enough time to, kind of celebrate each other.
And celebrate the situation.
Exactly. And then I think the reason why, one thing that I want to address is some people ask, well, why Black children specifically? Obviously, because it's 3 times the rate, but also because you want to create a safe space for the women to share what their experiences are. Sometimes we go to the doctor and we're not taken seriously. And that's really what the issue is. Mine was just a simple allergy that I almost died from. And so it's sad, and it was a very vulnerable spot to have a baby having emergency C-section, having an allergy that the doctor knew that he was supposed to address, and I ended up going into anaphylactic shock and almost dying.
And so the purpose of this program is to prevent
that, to advocate for yourself. And sometimes when you're able to articulate the words that you want to use.
And that's with education and understanding of those resources.
Absolutely. Knowing exactly what's happening to your body. Because none of us go to medical school. We don't know the terminology.
But Google makes us all think we're doctors.
Exactly.
I know. I've been Dr. Corrigan a few times.
Exactly. So we're just putting our lives in the hands of our physicians. And sometimes, just like any profession,
for yourself.
You don't always have the best person in front of you. And unfortunately, because of the way the industry is, the healthcare industry, they're rushing people straight, through. Yes. The people who are listening, there might have been times where they're sitting there at the doctor's office and they're writing the prescription before they've even, gotten out the first couple sentences.
I had that happen. Many people know I went through a pretty crazy health situation about a year and a half ago, and same thing was happening. The emergency room doctor was trying to rewrite a different antibiotic, and I went face first into the ground, right? And everybody went, it's not an antibiotic going to fix this situation.
Yes.
He's in bad shape.
Yes,
But
yes.
Anyway, so anything else you want to wrap up as far as you want to talk about your job before we transition to something else?
Yeah, just what
really
I will
appreciate you coming on, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
And being persistent about it too, by the way. You've been like, no, I'm going to get on that show. I want to talk about the job that we do.
Just like my plane trip, persistence is key. It
Yes,
gets you what you
you
need.
were,
what you
man.
want.
I gotta. Yeah, we got to do a show just on your plane trip.
We should, and working against all odds. What I will say is, one, I'm here as an individual, not necessarily as a county employee, but I'm here because I care about my community. I'm from the Inland Empire, just how you are. I want to see every woman have a happy and healthy baby, have a happy and healthy pregnancy. As my job as an employment service specialist, as a change champion, I'm definitely blessed to be in this position.
And we're blessed to have you. We're blessed to have you as an advocate, as a steward, as an activist within our organization, and as an individual, as a proud Teamster, helping individuals in need like you are in the position that you are. Really, really appreciate the work that you do.
Yes. And to all my peers in San Bernardino County that are listening right now, keep up the work. And we definitely appreciate everything that you're doing. And always remember, worker power.
That's right. If your employer doesn't appreciate you, we're sorry, but we appreciate you. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And once again, thank you for coming on and sharing a very unique position in a kind of big department. Sometimes the details of something like this gets a little lost. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. And for anybody who wants to, is thinking about enrolling or knows somebody who wants to enroll, you can go ahead to the San Bernardino County Black Infant Health website. You can apply online, you can call, or you can go in person.
Well, thank you for coming on. Anything you want to close on about being a proud Teamster?
I am from this area, and we have lost a lot of employers that provided benefits and livable wages. I think, and I've kind of been saddened to see the way my community has ended up as far as financially, and to see Teamsters come around, to see them fighting for livable wages where they can self-sustain themselves and live with dignity, gives me hope. It gives me pride, and it also gives me the energy to keep on going.
The great equalizer is a union contract.
Absolutely.
It's the only thing that's going to hold the employer accountable. No matter what rules or funding or elected officials, a Teamster contract or a union contract is the great equalizer for the working class.
Yep. Absolutely. The only entity created within the United States that's solely built to protect the worker.
That is correct. Man, I couldn't say it any better myself. Let's transition to a real quick break. Thanks for coming on, Kalea. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Randy.
Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Hit the toe so clear. Look out. Pop, pop, it's showtime. Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone time. Oh, they don't know. Gone time. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Designer mix. Inglewood's finest shoes. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues. Woo, shit. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jacking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon. Girls, what y'all trying to do? 24 karat magic in the air. Hit the toe so clear. Look out. Second verse for the hustlers. Gangsters. Bad bitches and your ugly ass friends. I cannot preach. I cannot preach. I gotta show them how a pimp get it in. First, take your sip. Do your dip. Spend your money like money ain't shit. Ooh, we too fresh. Got to blame it on Jesus. Hashtag blessed. They ain't ready for me. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up. Why you mad? Fix your face. Ain't my fault they all be jocking. Keep up. Players only. Come on, put your pinky rings up to the moon.
All right. Thanks for the break, and thanks for the music today, Mark. Like, you know, I just want to let you know that you could see everybody in the studio kind of like bouncing around a little bit. All right, it's got a little pep to it. Appreciate it. Randy Corrigan with the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. I am now joined by Jenna Guzman Lowry, right? Mm-hmm. Jenna Guzman Lowry and Valerie Tabor. Jenna is a current Redlands City Councilwoman, and then Valerie is actually a first-time candidate for the Redlands School Board. Yeah, go ahead, play that. Yes. No, the applause. See, he did it, and then he bounced on me. We got to work on this a little. All right. So, appreciate you guys coming on. You are both PAC endorsed by the local union, and from what I understand, all of you there's a whole team of you that have been out just canvassing like crazy, knocking on doors. And we had Jennifer on last week, and we were talking about the dynamic of canvassing and the dynamic of like asking questions and building a relationship at the door, inside, at the kitchen table. And I really love that aspect of it. And so with that, I'll get into some of these questions in a minute. Why don't you take a few minutes, Valerie? Why don't you go first, introduce yourself, what you're running for, why you think it's important for everybody to support you, and then we'll get to you, Jenna. Valerie?
Yeah, so my name's Valerie Tabor. I am running for Redlands School District, Area 5. I think it's a really important race to be paying attention to. One, because our schools are so important. They are the foundation of our community. They prepare the next generation of community members, so I think that's always essential. But it's particularly important this year because we have several extremists running in the area. If you are familiar with what's been happening in Temecula or Chino Valley, you know, there's been some talks about book banning, there has been forced outing policies, and we have a couple of people that are interested in doing that here. So while I think it is really important for the education standpoint to be focused on these things, it's especially important this year with 3 out of 5 seats up for election.
Right. Jenna?
Yeah, my name's Jenna. I'm currently the city council.
Is hers coming through? I'm not hearing it. Try it again.
My name's Jenna.
There she is. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
My rookie status, long-time organizer, first-time radio host, so sometimes all my stuff's not working.
I live on a soapbox, so sometimes the universe likes to humble me by making sure my microphone needs a little extra.
That's a good one.
Little extra
I love
effort.
That.
I'm currently the city council member for Redlands District 4, and I'm running for re-election this November. It's been a wild time. It's been fantastic connecting with voters and really making sure that we're truly representing the actual demographics of our populace, which is your everyday working person. A lot of times in politics, what you see is people who are deeply disconnected from the lived experience of what it's like to wake up, go to work, pay $12 for a dozen eggs. And so for me, the purpose for running, the importance of these campaigns is that it's critical that we continue to have real working people in these rooms making really important decisions on policy that affect working families.
I couldn't put it better myself. You both touched on something that I don't think we do enough in this country, just teach civic responsibility, understanding the mechanisms, the process of whether it's a school board or a city council meeting and participating. You know, everybody can complain, but getting involved and actually making a difference is a whole nother subject. And Valerie had mentioned about some of the book banning and kind of the craziness that's going on. I know we came to the Redlands School Board meeting a couple years ago when it was getting a little out of hand. It was actually funny to have a bunch of Teamsters show up. You know, they had all these Proud Boys there, and then we showed up. And for some crazy reason, they thought that we were on their side for just a short minute. And then when they realized, oh, no, they got real quiet and humbled real quick, and they ducked right out the back door because we got a little sideways with them in the hallway. It's just, it's weird to see some of this. We actually had Tony Thurman at the office a couple weeks ago at the office, and obviously the situation when he was at the he's the superintendent of schools for the state of California, and that divisive stuff happened there, and it's like, what is going on that we're gonna treat each other this way?
I think we know exactly what's going on.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that's really critical about like the nexus of workers' power with policy and the importance of being represented in government is that the biggest issue that we have in our world right now really is this massive wage gap, the economic disparities that exist. And when you don't know who the boogeyman is in terms of like the reasoning for the discomfort and the disenfranchisement you feel in your life, it's easy to find an invisible boogeyman. And that looks like a lot of these fringe issues that have been invented, when the reality is that like when your working needs are met, when you're able to have, a roof over your head, feed your children, go on a vacation every now and then, like you're far less likely to invent something to be angry at. When the reality is that it's these people in power who have continued to strip working people of their dignity and their access to a livable wage, affordable housing, and access to health care.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That divide and conquer of all of us that are in the working class trying to make something happen and taking these wedge issues or creating things that don't even exist to make it, like you said, the boogeyman situation or boogie woman.
You feel safe when you have like this enemy to rally against, even if the enemy isn't really real.
Correct. It's purposely fired up, and let's get them to fight among each other while we rob the store. Essentially, what it is. And it's the old adage of a bank robber, right? Like, create a distraction on this side of town so all the cops are there, and that way we can rob the bank. And that's what corporate America has been doing. Corporate interests have been doing this in America for 247 years, 248 years. Like, it started in our formation, and it's carried all these years later. Like, it still is there. Let's divide them so that they are trying to divide us so that they can capitalize on labor somehow. And the more we fight among one another, the less likely we are to revolt and go, hey man, we're going to hold you accountable.
And there's a reason that historically the Teamsters have really like folded so many different groups into the labor movement, because you see how successful it is when we all have a shared interest that we're working toward, which is really just simple dignity for everyday working people.
And it's got a simple recipe to it, which is knocking on doors and talking to people and listening and just trying to understand what the challenges are, and then finding compromise and resolution, not just picking a fight to pick the fight to create the distraction. It's more of, how do we get in, mix this thing up in a way where we go, okay, we need this, you need that. How do we collectively find that resolution? We're going to have a mandatory break here in about 3 minutes. And then what we'll do is because it's the one break I don't get to control on the show, because it's the top of the hour and NBC has to carry that news for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then we'll come back. But we've got a couple minutes left. The level, at a school board level, running for office at a school board, to me, is extremely important. I think that local government carries so much more responsibility.
Absolutely.
We kind of acquiesce it as citizens, as constituents. We don't pay attention enough to how powerful local government can be and the decisions that can actually be made at that level. Do you guys anything you guys want to chime in on that?
Well, you begin with school board.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to local politics and local elections, that is a very actionable way to get involved and see tangible changes in your everyday life. When we talk about, the presidential level, even the Senate level, so much of that is beyond what you can really see actionable change on, because that relies on, other people winning races in other counties, other states, and it's really hard to see change and have to see the tangible effects of that. But with local politics, when you elect people who care about the community, who are of the community, and really are focused on the aspects that are important to the local residents, you see a huge change, and you feel less hopeless, less helpless, because you are seeing that change.
And there's so much that can be done at the local level with local policy. As a matter of fact, most local government has a tendency to acquiesce their responsibilities to state or federal government, when actually local government or local entities whether they be school boards, joint power authorities, or cities themselves, county government, they have the ability to actually build like infrastructure, build resources, build enforcement mechanisms that otherwise don't need to depend on the national scale. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the other side. I got 30 seconds to break. And so think about that as we go to break, and what your thoughts are and how you like to respond to that. This is Randy Corrigan with the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. We're going to go to a break. Longtime organizer, first-time radio host. Break at the top of the hour. See you in just a couple minutes.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
This is an NBC News Radio special report. Hurricane Milton. Milton is barreling towards Florida's Gulf Coast as millions evacuate. The National Hurricane Center says Milton is a catastrophic Category 4 hurricane and will be extremely dangerous when it hits Florida's central coast either tonight or early Thursday, with maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour. Forecasters say the outer bands of the hurricane are already starting to impact Florida and that conditions are expected to deteriorate throughout the day. Central Florida can expect multiple significant hazards from Milton. The National Weather Service expects up to 15 inches of rain near the I-4 corridor and potentially devastating flooding. Tornadoes are already popping up in southwest Florida, with more expected today and tomorrow. Florida residents who've evacuated said they're scared about returning home once Milton passes.
I'm scared. I'm worried that my house ain't going to be there when I get back, because I'm right on the water. Storm surge is going to be pretty bad down there.
This has been an NBC News Radio special report. Hurricane Milton. I'm Lisa Taylor.
And now, the voices of KCAA with an exciting announcement.
Want to hear NBC News or KCAA anywhere you go? Well, now there's an app for that.
KCAA is celebrating 25 years and our silver anniversary with a brand new app.
The new KCAA app is now available on your smart device, cell phone, in your car, or any place.
Just search KCAA on Google Play or in the Apple Store.
One touch and you can listen on your car radio, Bluetooth device, Android Auto, or Apple CarPlay.
Catch the KCAA buzz in your earbuds or on the streets, celebrating 25 years of talk, news, and excellence with our new KCAA app.
Just do it and download it.
KCAA, celebrating 25 years.
One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
We've got to hire a new marshal, Derek Marshall. Your ballots are in the mail. Mail them in today. Now there's something to vote for, because there's a new marshal in town. Vote Derek Marshall for 23rd Congress.
Y'all know we need to change Congress. The current Congress does nothing but fight with each other. They've forgotten why we sent them there, to work. Let's marshal and fix our problems at the border. A comprehensive plan, not political rhetoric and infighting.
Yes, there's a new marshal in town.
The rent is too darn high. Let's marshal in affordable housing and real affordable universal health care. Better union jobs.
The current Congress member put his party first and not people. But there's a new marshal in town.
Our incumbent party politician voted no on the recently passed bipartisan infrastructure bill. He voted no to $3 billion in new funds for our district and no to 35,000 new jobs right here at home. He said, we need a secure border, but now he's rolled it back to play politics. We need to marshal real solutions.
Vote for Derek Marshall, because we've got to hire a new marshal, Derek Marshall. You can go to DerekMarshallCA.com, paid for by Derek Marshall for Congress.
My name is Derek Marshall, and I approve this message.
What would you do if you had a broken bone?
You'd go to the doctor and use your insurance, right? Well, what would you do if you have a serious problem with drugs and alcohol? Most people do nothing until it's way too late. Your insurance can help you get clean and sober with the assistance of a place like the Detox and Treatment Helpline. Many times, addiction treatment is fully covered. So why not use your insurance to treat your addiction problem just like you would if you had a broken bone? And with the Family Medical Leave Act, you're allowed to take time off by law, and your employer doesn't need to know the reason. So there are two good reasons. You've got insurance you can use for your addiction problem, and with the Family Medical Leave Act, it's completely confidential. Call now, 800-398-7414. That's 800-398-7414.
Are you looking for a good union job? The Inland Empire's 14,000 member strong Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get working people trained and placed in open positions in public service clerical work and in jobs in the logistics industry. This is a new opportunity to advance your career and raise standards across the region. Visit 1932trainingscenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingscenter.org.
Randy Corrigan back with the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. I am joined by Jenna Guzman-Lowry and Valerie Tabor, both here in, actually I can't say here in Redlands. I think we're just literally like a stone's throw away from it. Is this technically Redlands here? Mm-hmm. Technically it is?
It is.
Okay, so if I throw a stone that way, I hit Loma Linda, right? Yeah. Is that what it is? And so, we just, too bad we couldn't record this 5 minutes that we just had. We're going to try to repeat it right now. We had this great dialogue. Wouldn't you guys agree?
It was fantastic. It was
really
great.
Had this great dialogue during the break, and Robert's sitting here saying, "Hey, Randy, it's got to catch this." I said, "No, we'll. I think with this group, we're going to fire it back up again." Civic responsibility, policy. We talked about a few different things, following the letter of the law, and the minimum requirements. Right before the break, what I had brought up, the fact is that local government has the ability to do more than it actually does, in a sense of holding these local businesses accountable. When I say businesses, I'm talking about these big developers roll in. They say, oh, there's this big operation. There's going to be 1,000 jobs. It's going to be good jobs. And first of all, half the time when you ask them, define a good job, please? Local government, through community benefit agreements, can actually require lots of things inside of that agreement, right? And unfortunately, what happens is the cities kind of play off each other or undermine each other to the developer's benefit of highest bidder. In our case, the way we see it, lowest bidder. Mm-hmm. It's highest bidder for them, lowest bidder for us. Who can give away more tax revenue? Who can give away more infrastructure breaks? Or who could have less requirements or less, streets, roads, improvements, all that good stuff. And I think I just opened the door on probably like 50 different subjects. But that's kind of what the meat and potatoes of it is. And I just really, I love the energy at how a lot of local new elected leaders are thinking, yeah, we can do that at the local level.
Yeah, we can, and we should, is really what's critical. And I think what we're seeing is the shift from who gets to sit in these seats, right? When you look most recently at the issues in Redlands, where we have approved 3-2 the construction of a warehouse on California Street, you had an outpouring of community opposition and dissent saying, we don't want any more warehouses in the Inland Empire, right? We know that there is a massive effect that this has on air quality, on health outcomes, and the disparities of which families actually can afford to create protections between them and the environment that they're impacted by. So we know right there that there's an impact in terms of financial disparities, work disparity, like who are the communities that are most impacted, and therefore, why are these things still happening in our community? And so what you see is historically, city council members and elected officials who are completely disconnected from those communities. They're not at the same grocery stores as them. They're not in the same community activities as them. So they're not as impacted by what these decisions are having on their neighbors, right, on the residents in their city. And so, yeah, the letter of the law says, right, you have to have certain facts and findings in order to deny these projects, right? Really well-paid lawyers are going to tell you that you can't deny these projects because of the cost of litigation and this and that. But what a really important role that we have as electeds is that we get to shape legislation. And it means we might not be able to impact something today on this project that's happening right now, but we have the responsibility and the moral obligation to shape legislation in the future. Whether that looks like revising your city's general plan, revisiting, is this actually reflective of the community that lives here today and the values that we have as a community?
And the community that's going to live here tomorrow.
Right, in a future generation,
Yep.
7 generations from now.
Yep.
And so that's really an important part about being an elected official. It's not about what you can accomplish necessarily in the 4 years that you're there, but what sort of seeds can you plant so that you are building upon a value system that prioritizes community over development, over profit, that says, okay, we're going to invest in shade structure. We're not going to see that in a year or two. That's going to be many generations before we see the impact of that.
My favorite conversation with these developers when they're going to bring in a warehouse, I've personally had many of these conversations where we're dealing with or fighting with or trying to impact what the development's going to look like. And they talk about the jobs that they're bringing. First question I always ask them is this: where are the people going to live that do those jobs? Because what we've seen in Southern California is the jobs move into Orange County first out of the LA Basin, and then they moved from Orange County and let's say Pomona-ish, San Gabriel Valley, then they moved into like Ontario-ish, and then they now have progressed further and further out in the Inland Empire, and then now what's happening is, let's build a bunch of warehouses right here in, let's say, Redlands, Fontana, Ontario's almost built out, and some of the other areas, down on Riverside County, and now people have to commute from the desert areas. So no matter what you're doing, like, you're still keeping the commute because these developers are still not making sure that I guess it's 2 levels. One, those making the decision at the city level or the government level, it could be a county as well, and the developers making sure that those jobs are good jobs, good, not their definition of good, but good jobs on how we would, and I believe we're an expert on what a good job is. I don't believe anybody's a better expert at this. They can hire John Housing or Husing, or they can hire all these so-called experts that don't know the first thing about a good job. We have been doing it for over 100 years.
People with lived experience.
That's correct. For over 100 years, we know what good jobs are. Period.
Mm-hmm.
They fail to have us in the space to have the conversation. They call in their experts. They say, this is what the experts say. And we're like, man, we've been around 125 years. You didn't call us.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a good
Almost
job.
like you're experts.
Yeah, right. So, and the developers never can answer that question. They're like, we can't.
They don't want to.
They don't want to. They hide behind the layers, right? They hide behind, we're just building it and we can't require the occupant. Yeah, you can.
I mean,
you actually can.
It's almost like when DuPont, right, told the people of the Appalachian, mountain range that there was no issues in terms of
the glowing water.
Yeah. That's not a problem. We've talked to our experts. Oh, okay.
Our experts say that green glowing water that is flowing down the stream is perfectly good for you. As a matter of fact, you should pick some up and use it for Christmas lights at your house. Like, crazy what they have tried to, they being corporate interests, the super wealthy, have tried to convince us of.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie, I know we've been running our mouths over here and you're trying to get in on the mic. What's your...
I love hearing Jenna and also you talk, so I don't mind sitting back and listening for a little bit.
Do you listen to our radio show?
I've listened to a couple of your radio shows.
Fair.
But I really like listening to Jenna on the dais.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there you go.
But I want to circle back to what Jenna was saying about how historically the seats that we're running for have been a certain type of person. They've either been affluent folks, they have been generally white Southern Redlands folks that have been running, that either have money or they're retired. And so there is a disconnect because they're not of the neighborhoods where these warehouses are being built. No one is going over to Southside Redlands and building warehouses. It is over on the north side. It is over where folks do not have the same kind of affluence or resources to move away or get those protections. And with the last, I want to say it's been in the last like decade or two where we've moved to the district model of voting, it's not just folks that have historically held power and been part of the establishment in Redlands that are able to run for these roles and these seats. Now it is a wide variety of folks who are representative of their communities. And so I think that has made a really big difference. And I know I've been very open about how seeing Jenna on the council and seeing someone who is reflective of my experiences be on the council has influenced me to take a greater role in civics. So, and I mean that by age, I mean that in seeing like a young millennial woman up on the dais, like that is so critical to have a multi-generational array of folks that are representing us.
Yeah, it needs to be diverse, actual diverse, and match it. It's interesting you bring up the districts because that's the purpose of the districting is to deal with this subject.
Yeah, do you know how
itself.
expensive it is to run when you are running citywide?
Yeah.
Who can do that?
That's correct. Those systems were in place to, like you said. And what's ironic is the generational change that people make. Like those individuals you were speaking of, let's say they're older, more affluent, they've lived in the area a long time. If I could have talked to them in their 20s, they were probably the crazy hippies, running around with a totally different view of the world.
Maybe.
Right?
They also bought a house for 4 blueberries.
That is correct. That's kind of what I was getting to, is that it's interesting to see how as time went on, people have kind of they shift in that space. They drift, like you said, they drift further and further away from the challenges that are happening at the entry level into the workforce, at just getting into adulthood, just coming out of college, whatever is, because it's always funny. Oh, well, this is what I had to go through. Blah 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 blah. Well, when I graduated high school, I could get a job anywhere that I could buy a house with. And that's only 30 some years ago, right? That's not the case today. Like that is not the case. So while certain individuals are bragging that their house is worth $1 million or $700,000, it must be me, I did this great thing. Well, it's kind of some interesting things in the market that we could actually be riffing off of this too. That's a whole nother podcast, right? The point is that now I've got this individual kind of wealth, not me personally, but people will say, well, I got that individual wealth. Well, you're just not working hard enough. No. When you came out into the workforce, especially at a certain age, their higher education was almost completely paid for, right? And so all these challenges that face somebody who is just entering the workforce or just entering college or just coming out of college are completely different. And like you said, my grandfather bought a house in Ontario in 1956 for $5,200. If you look at how much that has gone up to where it is compared to today, obviously he passed away in it in 1998.
Not
you
to
know what I
mention
mean?
Prop 13, which is fantastic for homeowners, also means that their property tax is very low.
That's correct.
So they're not, experiencing, and they shouldn't have to, right? The thing that always comes up when we're talking about this generational gap is not about an us versus them thing. It's that if you care deeply, right, for your fellow community members, if you have interest in the needs and values of other people that you cohabitate with, that you are in community with, then you want that for me too.
That's correct.
I think that, my grandparents' generation, my parents' generation, like they deserve to have the protections and the Social Security and the Medicare and all those things that they have access to now. They deserve to have that. Just like we also deserve to have access to organizing power that guarantees that we're also going to have those needs met.
But the only way we're going to do that is by knocking on doors, building these good relationships, draw on some compromise with one another and just figuring out how to, I always, like you say, our worker power, that's where we've really adopted that phrase, and we recognize that people are responding to it. They get it.
Mhm.
They understand what that means. And connecting that to the community on a broader perspective, in our opinion, is very powerful. And it's why we see a lot of these things that we see happening, at least in the Inland Empire from our perspective. And speaking of that, where's James Estrada at, by the way?
He's at a steward meeting, which is
I hope he's listening,
which is good.
and I'm going to bust his chops because I figured he'd be. He's looking through the blinds over there. Is what he's doing. Hey, what about me, man? Normally he's in here.
He's doing his part. He's
listening.
at a steward meeting.
Yeah, hopefully he's at a steward. Hopefully all the other stewards are giving him a little bit of razzing right now because he'd be beating on that back door saying, "Let me in." Anyway, point is, worker power, community power, activism, finding all that space. We are seeing that really blossom in a lot of ways. And I'm assuming you guys are experiencing it as you're knocking on doors out there.
Yeah, we certainly are. I think when I talk to folks in the community, when I'm canvassing, I hear a lot of similar threads. And whatever side of the political spectrum you fall on, a common thread is wanting safety for our kids. A common thread is wanting quality education, wanting to feel respected and feel heard. And so when you can emphasize those common threads of what people are wanting for their kids, what people are wanting for their families and our community, I think you can find the overlap to bring people together. Because at the end of the day, I really don't think we're that different, especially when it comes to our schools, but even with larger community issues. I think it is about feeling safe, getting our needs met, and feeling heard and respected.
We agree on more things than we disagree on in our communities, even if we are on opposite sides of the political spectrum. But we're being provoked to identify the things that we disagree on so that we get mad. And it goes back to that point that we made earlier, that as long as we're fighting with each other, someone's robbing the bank somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And I think that the other thing, this fear-mongering of I'm an organizer and have been knocking on doors for over 30 years. It's how I built, lots of worker power and helped workers organize over all this time. And I've noticed the change happen in the decades where more and more people got a little more and more upset about knocking on the door. What are you doing getting upset about that for? You think about it. People that are willing to walk door to door, that are willing to, the way I grew up is like, if you work hard, you're going to have a leg up. If you are willing to work hard, knock on doors, and talk to somebody, you just gained respect because you weren't willing to, or you didn't sit back and want it to come to you, right? You were willing to get out and hustle. Why have we created this social sort of scaredy cat situation where we're afraid to knock on each other's doors and talk to each other? Now, obviously, it's by design, and it goes back to the whole thing we talked about.
I don't think it's so much about fear as it is with annoyance, right? I think the general public is burnt out. Yeah. I don't think it's so much of like an issue of they don't want to be communicated to, or that they're, these hermits that have isolated themselves at home. I think they're burnt out. And I think on the other side of that, you actually have a lot of, corporate takeover of your normal grassroots efforts. And so you have these people who have co-opted these spaces, no different than reaching out to a friend to have a phone call, knocking on someone's door in a neighborly way. You now also have corporations that go door to door, right? You've got like giant groups like Verizon or Spectrum or Frontier that are asking you to change your internet to this new package. And it's sort of like co-opted the space. They're no different than the way telemarketers and spam calls call you from a number that looks like it's a local phone number, which has created this experience in which people don't trust that what is happening here is truly a person-to-person moment, that there's an agenda at play, or that, you want something from me.
I'm going to push back a little bit on this one. I'll explain why. The door-to-door sales is something that I think we should all embrace, because the person who's knocking on doors, whether it's a vacuum and it's the old Kirby, or it's in today's day trying to sell solar, or something else like that. I agree that there's this issue where corporate America has capitalized on this, but I think that we've got to try to figure out how to be more embracive versus trying to be more secluded in that situation.
Yeah,
because
I think it's just hard because you can't expect your consumer to differentiate every interaction between what is a meaningful, genuine one versus one where there's a sale at the end of it.
Yeah, but they got to make that call on their end.
Yeah, but if they're burnt out, they're like, I'm not doing that. I'm watching TV. I'm going to eat my dinner.
Yeah.
And I think it comes back to the work-life balance too. You know, when folks are spending, you know, a majority of their day, often multiple jobs, or they're taking care of kids, and, you know, that people are so busy and they have such limited personal free time that a lot of times people aren't interested in having conversations with people at the doors because of that, or they would rather just look at the door hanger that you left. And so I don't see it as a negative thing necessarily when people aren't answering their doors or not wanting to have those conversations.
I don't fault them.
Yeah.
If they're not in a union job, they're probably having to work overtime and double time just to make general ends meet.
Yeah, I don't fault them either. Try not to get me wrong. I just
no.
feel like the social pressures have kind of created. I see the fear. I always hear people say, "Oh, I'm afraid of what's at my door. Oh, I'm scared." Like, easy. Like, we're a lot more kind than we are the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree we have to be careful. You know, you have to obviously pay attention, but we're not as bad as some people would, you know, try to spin it to be, but also be a little more embracing of those that are willing to knock on doors. It's always funny for me as an organizer, especially in the labor movement, when I have someone I work with or it's a peer and I hear them complain, I always nudge them and go, "Are you kidding me? Like, isn't this what we do for a living? Like, how would you feel if every time you went and knocked on a door, somebody treated you?" Well, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, and just take it down a notch, but very good discussion. I got to wrap this up, or you guys, man, you blew through like 45 minutes almost.
Whoops.
Real
We're
fast.
good yappers. Yeah.
No, it's just good dialogue. It's great dialogue. It's a lot of fun. I really appreciate you both coming on. Anything you want to each of you want to wrap up before I go to the next segment?
I encourage everyone listening to educate yourself about who's running for Redlands City Council as well as Redlands School Board. These are really important elections. This is a great way for you to affect your everyday life and make lives better for our students, our staff, our community as a whole. And so I strongly encourage you to look into who's running.
Yeah, and I would say, to echo that, make sure that you're paying attention to who the people are down ballot. The big stuff can feel really impossible and hopeless sometimes, right? When it comes to presidential, congressional, sometimes even assembly stuff, it can just feel like it's so much bigger than you. But if you start down ballot and you look at your school board, you look at your city council, those are the places that you have a direct impact. You are likely to get an email back or a phone call back from those individuals. So make sure that your voice is heard. And if you start there and you don't fill out the rest of the ballot, I get it. Things feel impossible. I encourage you to go all the way up ballot, you know, participate in the democratic process.
Yeah.
But if you start somewhere and you want to feel inspired, start down ballot.
It's a very good point. Start down ballot, work your way up. And something that I like to offer up as a suggestion during this voting season, you get your voter guide ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not sure where all these people are, in today's day, that's right. It's very easy to literally just type it in, find their campaign, and ask them a question, and then you can, you know, hey, send me your materials or your platform or whatever it is. Thank you for pointing that out. I think that this is a very good space to encourage that, because we all get in that, we look at it and we starting to get down ballot, and you're like, man, I forget this one.
Yeah.
You know, who's this and who's
it's
that?
organizing power. Just
Yes.
like our voices matter in organizational efforts, they matter in community organizing as well.
They sure do.
And I would encourage you to look into multiple sources about candidates, because, you know, when we talk about candidate questionnaires, usually they're geared for like a certain audience, they're geared for a certain image. And so I encourage you to look at websites, Instagrams, Community Forward Redlands has a really great election hub. So there,
And ask to talk to the candidate.
And ask to talk to the candidate.
You should be able to get to the candidate in election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You should. So that is my last caveat is, you know,
Cross-reference your resources.
Yes.
Well, thank you both for coming on. It's been phenomenal. I really appreciate it. I love all this worker power, community power, women power. I love all this.
Invite
how
me
it
back
all comes
anytime.
together.
I love a
We'll
microphone.
I know we tried to get you on a few times over the last few months, and we just couldn't line up the schedules. And Mark, if you could just...
She's a busy woman.
Yes, she is.
I'm a
Very
working
popular
woman.
around here. Very popular. She does a great job. Really appreciate the work. Randy Corrigan's Worker Power Hour, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. I have been joined with Jenna Guzman-Lowry and Valerie Tabor here at the Worker Power Hour. See you in probably 60 seconds. Take it away.
Talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Get jazzy on them. You know the words in my songs. No habla English. Our conversations ain't long, but you know what is. I know what that girl them want. London to Taiwan. I got lipstick stamps on my passport. I think I need a new one. Been around the world, don't speak the language, but your booty don't need explaining. All I really need to understand is when you talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Talk dirty to me. Met your friend in Rio. She was all on me. We can make now she 3 Oh yeah.
Those cadenas close to genius. Sold out arenas, you can suck my penis. Gilbert Arenas, guns on deck. Chest to chest, tongue on neck. International oral sex. Every picture I take, I pose a threat. Bold and jet, what you expect? Her pussy so good, I bought her a pet. Anyway, every day I'm trying to.
This is Randy Corrigan with the Worker Power Hour. Not sure if you paid attention to the actual music that was playing in between. Probably, that was probably not appropriate. Anyway, maybe I should have just ignored it so that nobody paid attention. Nobody actually focused on it. I am now joined with Brother Kamek, Randy Kamek, who is the Secretary-Treasurer of Teamsters Local 63, my mentor for many years, as well as the former Joint Council President, Joint Council 42 in Southern California, Southern Nevada, and Hawaii, and former Vice President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. He has been in about every position you could be in within this organization, and I've been trying to get him back on the show for a few weeks, actually a little more than a month, and it's good to have him back on. With that, I got some questions I'm going to ask, and I'm glad that he came back on. It's good to have you back, Randy. Thanks for coming on.
It's an honor to be back here, Randy. It's last time I was here, I was so pleased to see the outreach that you're doing through this radio program, communicating with Teamster members and the general public. I said before that sometimes have different conceptions of what Teamsters are. They are referred to as a bunch of thugs, or people really don't understand in a general sense what we do and how important we are to workers' lives.
Yeah, you have you've been doing this just for a few years, right?
Pardon?
You've been doing this just for a few years, right?
Well, this is my 57th year as a Teamster.
Yeah, that's a few years.
That's
right.
Beginning to feel it.
So I got a couple questions for you. First, can you remember the first time you understood or recognized the value of a union and realized its impact?
Well, actually, many years ago, I was a UPS driver, and I worked for UPS when their appearance standards were very strict. And at that time, I rode a Harley Davidson, and I had a little Fu Manchu, which was outside their appearance standards. So they came out, and we had a safety thing. They took a picture of the group, and I said, well, I don't want to be in it because I know that mustache or that Fu Manchu is going to show up. And so they insisted. So when they posted the picture in a magazine, they blacked out my face. And it was so upsetting to me and to all the guys I worked with, which was about 100 people in that facility in Pomona, that all of them the next day started growing, all 100 people started growing Fu Manchus, including the management people. So that was the first real demonstration of what unity can do, people standing behind each other. And that inspired me to become a union steward many years ago. It was probably, in the mid-'60s. And from there on, it was just, it was just like something I couldn't let go of, helping people in what sometimes seems like minuscule situations, but maybe not. But it's important to the individual, whether somebody was suspended or just mistreated somehow or didn't get paid appropriately, and that feeling, that personal reward that for me personally, that you get out of that is nothing other than that's what people that are in this business of representing members, whether it be Teamsters or any other union. It's not the money or the titles, because God, I've had a lot of it. None of them mean anything beyond. Nothing is important to somebody to come up and thank you for helping me. Helping my son, helping my dad. In some cases with me, people walk up to me that I represent their grandparents and come up and say thank you for getting my grandfather's job back 40 years ago. That is so personally rewarding to me, being an old guy. And you really understand what this whole thing that we do is about, and the personal feeling that you get when you've done something good for somebody to make their life better.
Yeah, that feeling of camaraderie when the group all came together and said, "Hey, we're not going to let you do that." Obviously, it's a connection. It's that spark that attaches you to something greater and something bigger. This is the first time I've heard that story.
Yeah, that was right. Everybody that I worked with in that Pomona Center, which doesn't exist anymore,
that was Local 871, right?
This would have been in the late 60s.
871, Local 871?
Yeah, it was 871.
Yep.
And from that, it was just the guys stuck together like you wouldn't believe. It was kind of like, they couldn't believe what they did. They defaced me in a magazine and sent it out all over Southern California. And that kind of put a kink in my relationship with that company. And I realized they could do something like that. They could do that to anybody.
Yeah. Considering that, obviously, it's the first victory of a very long career.
I never told you that story, I guess.
Yeah, you didn't. That's the first time I've heard that story. That's a great story. As a labor leader, can you talk about some of your most memorable kind of victories?
Well,
what stands out?
Over the many years, because I've been actually worked for a local union in some elected position for the last 44 years. Everything from vice president, trustee, secretary, treasurer, president. It's some of the most rewarding experience, I think, because to see things change that were negative, because I've taken over local, those bankrupt, people were not being represented, to see that change to a positive mode, very much like you've done with Local 1932. It's very rewarding, even though I didn't do it, to see that happen in that transition to where people feel good about the union, especially about the Teamsters Union, because I'm very, my dad was a Teamster, my grandfather was a Teamster starting back in the 1930s.
Yeah, talk about those jobs. What did your dad and your grandfather do as Teamsters?
My grandfather was actually in construction in the 30s and early 40s in San Diego. And he belonged to what was 542, then it broke off and became Local 36, which was the construction local. My grandfather's medals, the union badges, they used to, when you pay your dues, you'd get a button. His union card and all his union mementos that he had during that time frame belonging to 542 are now on display in Local 542 in a cabinet as you walk in the door in San Diego. Now, my dad was an organizer for Local 578, and he belonged to Local 871, worked at Vitapac for a while. But neither had because that was pre the pension coming into play. So then neither one of them were able to enjoy what we were able to enjoy the Teamster pension because they predated that. But I really didn't know a lot of that about my grandfather until years after he passed away. We were going through his stuff and said, my grandfather, he belonged to the Carpenters for a while, but mostly Teamsters. So it was special to me. It was something I didn't know and find out. And then I knew my dad worked for the Teamster. He worked with Jim Easley, Gunnar Hansen, not in those other places, but helping organize an oil company over in Azusa.
Obviously, you come from a generation that there was a little bit more physical contact on picket lines from time to time. And obviously that's faded away as time has gone on. But what sticks out in your mind?
When I first started, James R. Hoffa, and the younger Hoffa is referred to Junior, but he's really not. And it's James R. was the first Hoffa that this Teamsters Union was kind of molded around. And it was a different world. The employers hired thugs to beat up picketers, and they had control of the local police, had picketers arrested, thrown in jail, brutalized. So the tactics that many unions, particularly ours, had to
fight back,
were react to that. And so we had to have people that were tough also and react. You see your fellow workers or people you represent being beat up or thrown in jail, it's going to cause a reaction, and that's a lot of people don't. Well, the Teamsters were gangsters. They really weren't. They were doing everything they could to do something better for the members, even if those tactics today are not acceptable or illegal even. It was just things that were necessary during that time frame.
You've been a very influential force within this entire organization and the broader labor movement as a whole. Who, for you, obviously you have been my mentor for all these years.
God forbid.
I can. If everybody don't like me,
we
know the guy to blame.
I'll get blamed.
We know the person to blame. But who was your mentor? Like, who early on did you? I know that when I talk to people about you, because obviously your name hangs on our building, and people, they always ask me, who is it that Randy looked up to when he was first starting out and connected to? Who were those mentors to you when you were younger?
That one's very easy because, when I went to work for Local 467 in 1980, I worked with who became one of my closest friends, was Bob Molina. And he was the epitome of a union representative. He was tough. He looked just like Charles Bronson. If you saw him, he'd say, that's Charles Bronson, only he was about 10 times tougher. And he would do anything to represent the members. He had his heart and soul. He would risk his life, to give everything he had to make members' lives better. And, it was just, he inspired me. And it wasn't somebody that wanted a title. In fact, when I first ran for office, he and I wanted him to actually run because I didn't want to do that. And we almost got in a fight in a bar over who was going to be secretary-treasurer because he didn't want the accolades. He says, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing now, representing members. I don't need any of that other stuff. He says, you take it, Kemick. And so rather than get beat up, I became secretary-treasurer. I think that's one fight I probably wouldn't have won. I'm not just probably. But he inspired me right up to the point. It was a great, tremendous personal loss. When he passed away, he had cancer. And he's been gone almost 20 years. And I know that he meant a lot to you, too, also, Randy, because he was, on a personal level, he was just one of a kind.
He was
members
amazing.
Loved him. And, very unique. I haven't seen anybody really like him that could be as ferocious yet sensitive and compassionate at the same time.
And willing to help no matter what.
Yeah, and he wasn't looking for anything for it. It just came natural to him.
What do you want to leave behind as your legacy in all of these years
I
for the
don't
labor
leave any
movement?
money behind.
You're going to spend it all.
My son's listening to this. Where are you going to hide it?
I mean, Randy, seriously, you got a lot. You've done a lot. I mean, there's a lot to point to that I can obviously lay out as part of it. But just out of curiosity for you, what would you want that to be?
I think to have people who really care about you, remember you in a good light, to have your family, your children think well of you. And I know that was one of my shortcomings. I deprived my children of a lot of time because I was so devoted to doing what we do, and I know you're very much the same way. And to have finally in the last few years, I think they've really come to understand more about the commitment that we have to make as a union representative and how much time that takes away from your family. To have them feel good about how I've spent my time over the years means a great deal to me.
Means a lot to me. I know you personally have impacted my life and my family in a tremendous way over 30 years, and I mean I got a lot of things I can check that list off on what your legacy is, and I do appreciate the fact that you don't want to leave any money behind for someone in particular.
Well, you can look through that little window and see one reason.
So, what do you find most frustrating about the labor movement for you? Like, what is the most frustrating thing in this space for us?
One of the things is a change in general in the way people think about loyalty. And when I started, loyalty meant a great deal. As being a Teamster, being a union person, that seems to be dissipating. There's people now that can't wait. There's become too many backstabbers, if I want to say that. People who would turn on you for the wrong reasons, and I think too much that's encouraged. One of the basic concepts of the Teamsters Union was loyalty.
Yeah, and a loyalty to the movement, a loyalty to one another to help the movement, a loyalty to the space so that
there's
can
a
get through.
fracture in what we do to know there are people that would be willing to do something to hurt the organization. And that goes into a lot of different dimensions. I don't really have the time to go into all that, but to see that begin to fracture. And so that's one of the things I've always tried to do is bring people together and and you get disappointed sometimes, but you just have to put that aside and move on to trying to do something better than what bad situation you've been through.
What do you think makes a great leader in the labor movement? What do you think defines that? I mean, this is obviously many people define you as a great leader within this labor movement and specifically within the Teamsters Union because you've transcended so many different scenarios and situation and leadership, other general presidents. I think today we talked about it earlier. You've been through 5 general presidents. You've dealt with 5 different general presidents from a leadership role. And what do you think makes a good leader in the labor movement?
Someone who's not into self-grandizing or about themselves. Bob Molino, who I mentioned a little while ago, told me one time, he says, you can tell a lot about people when they talk about using the word my or me versus our. People who encompass their membership, we're talking about our membership, not my membership, or my member versus our member, means he's speaking in terms of bringing people together, not that it's me. It's not about, it should never be about me personally, or how great I am, or what the great things I've done. A great leader will move away from that and try to be somebody who's humble and yet compassionate and still be powerful. I think you could do all of that, and you'll have more respect. And thank people for when they help you. You've got to reach out and, we talked about early this morning about that, being grateful, because we all, in this environment, we run for office every so many years. People that help you and support you and give you money, you've got to be thankful for that, because you're here because of your accomplishments, and the other part because a lot of people pitched in to help you get elected. And so we always have to remember we wouldn't be here without the support of our members, our supporters, people who have beliefs that mirror what we feel. And I think that's a leader. Somebody who wouldn't appear to be a leader sometimes is the leader.
Very true. And sometimes they're not as loud. They're a little more quiet. It's not always the loudest person in the room that's the leader.
No, because sometimes that's the person who's listening. And you try to evaluate who's the leader in a room. It's not always the one that's running their mouth. Sometimes it's the one that's listening and trying to comprehend or figure out how to solve a problem rather than talk BS about what the problem is.
You've seen this incredible transformation with UPS over your 50 plus years. And obviously, they were a decent sized company in the 1960s, but clearly they were much larger than they were then. And that contract's obviously transformed into arguably, the best contract in the labor movement, bar none, for workers. And I think that one of the things you should be proud of is that you've been involved in that bargaining for the better part of 4 or 5 decades. And so you've had your hand in the mix at making sure those improvements that have steadily happened over and over and over and over and over a long period of time have, you've been right there in the mix. You've been at that national negotiating table. You were the chairman of the Southwest Rider for quite some time. You've been a leader where you've been in charge of the individuals that were in those positions. And I always watched you influence those in a good way to make sure that the members always benefited from it. What an interesting sort of vantage point for you to see UPS change all those years.
I was just thinking back in the mid-'60s when I got out of the service, that it was a much smaller company. And the owner of the company, Jim Casey, used to come around and actually visit the centers and thank people. He wrote a book called the UPS Policy Book. As soon as he died, I think they burned it. But, he was, myself, I'm one of the few people who probably still alive who actually had the opportunity to go to dinner with him, myself.
To meet with him.
One of the retirees, Bill Doherty, actually had a dinner with him.
I told this story the other day to some people. I was like, Randy actually went to dinner with him and met with him multiple times at the end of obviously his life and the end of his.
And he never acted. Here's a guy who owned the whole company. You would never know it. He was humble. He came around and thanked everybody for the hard work they do. Appreciative and genuine. Not, very few people have ever had that kind of an effect on me. And people say, you actually had that's bullshit. He's been dead for. But he was actually a real person, very much like locally. I had a guy like that with Jack Brown, out-of-staters. It was very much like that. Not quite as compassionate, but he was a different, unique individual. And so was Jim Casey. But seeing that used to be a family thing. It was the Overcotter brothers, the Smiths, and the Caseys. It was all family. And the bigger they got, the less it became family, and it mostly became run by bean counters if you were in their early years. the whole board, you had to work your way up. You had to have been a driver, an hourly worker, or you'd never get on the general board, you know. And so many years it was that way. The board was all ex-people who'd actually worked for a living, doing what the drivers and unloaders and sorters do every day. But that all changed. There's nobody today, there's not a single person on the board that I know of who ever worked for UPS in a laboring position. They're all people from outside, bean counters, they call them. And that's changed. They've lost that personal thing that they had for a lot of years, up until probably till he passed away, and then everything started to change. Of course, they started growing immensely. Can't always have a mom and pop operation, but they lost that personal touch they had with, and most people knew him. Jim Casey came through and said hello today. And he went all over the country doing that. That's not, special individual.
Well, I'm sure I can say it on behalf of tens of thousands of UPSers. Thank you for the great contract that's there. Thank you for many great contracts in lots of other industries, but the one that always stands out is UPS, just because there's so many members that work there, number one. Number two, it is the gold standard in the industry. And I just want to say, I'm sure there are a lot of retirees and individuals that are about to retire, workers that respect and appreciate how much money they make and the benefits that they have. Thank you, Randy, for doing that. I'm just saying that on their behalf because I know that they would like to say it themselves.
I just played, for the most part, when I chaired some of the stuff I had years behind. It was a collective effort, of a lot of people, a lot of good leaders around the country who collectively came together and pushed for the thing that I feel best about in myself, and actually Ken Harala pushes on the retiree health care here in the South, in the Southwest, which now has become one of the best. It used to be that you had like a lifetime maximum of $1,000 on health care. When you used it up, you didn't have health care. So over the many years, and with a lot of people helping, Andy Marshall played a role in that, and so does a number of other people. They now have health care that's for their entire life. They carry the same plan they have as an active person on through their retirement with a very minimal copay. And I know you've done something similar here for 1932 with the pub. They never had retiree coverage.
That's correct.
And I think from what I know of being around public sector folks, it's very unique and unusual. And your folks are very appreciative of what you've done for your members with providing a health care opportunity for people who did not have it.
Well, I learned from the best. So we've just got a few more minutes left in the show. I think we've got like 3 left, and really appreciate you coming on, Randy.
Anytime, Randy. It's an honor for me to be part of what you're doing here.
Well, anything we do is a reflection on you. We'll just blame me for all the bad stuff.
That part's scary.
I'm now in a position where I can actually start to blame him. It used to be all those years that he always blamed me, and I was the one that had to take the lumps. So now I'm going to start shifting that blame over this next few years. No, that was the other Randy. That was Kamek that did it, not me. No, I really appreciate it. Our entire staff, our membership, obviously really appreciate you, appreciate your role and what you did in helping build the organization. Love your support on all the programs that we do, and we really appreciate you coming on the radio show because our members, the listenership on a radio show is expanding very, very rapidly right now. It's moving in a very fast pace, and we really appreciate
Hopefully
you.
it doesn't go down after today.
No, more people want to listen to it because they want to hear, they want to see. They're just curious to see how far you are willing to go on live radio. So with that, let me wrap this up. I'd like to close always talking about building worker power. We really appreciate Randy coming on and talking about how he's been my mentor all these years, And I really appreciate him spending the time to tell some stories and explain his perspective on some of the questions he had. But we're building worker power in the Inland Empire. What can you do to build worker power in the Inland Empire? You can talk to your family. You can talk to your friends. You can talk to your neighbors. You can see our Think a Teamster program and our worker power build out on the billboards and the buses and obviously on the radio show. And one of the things that we're encouraging workers to do is to come together, build solidarity, and organize a union right here in their backyard. And the more we do this and the more we occupy this space, the more workers are going to benefit and the more the community is going to benefit. And so I'm a longtime organizer, first-time radio host. This is Randy Corrigan and the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. See you next week.